Today's episode is kind of a short one. I had to really cram my production schedule into a small amount of time this week, so I'm going to keep this concise. Thanks to all of you who've hung in there and listened to each new episode I post. I know I don't get one of these up every week, but it means a lot to me that you take the time out of your busy life to listen to me yak about stuff. Anyway, thanks. Let's get to it.
Are you, the Department of Homeland Security, considering a new initiative that would separate children from their parents if they try to enter the United States illegally?
Yes, I am considering, in order to deter, I am considering exactly that.
This episode contains moral outrage and some adult language.
So since more illegal immigrants are rushing the border, more kids are being separated from their parents and temporarily housed in what are essentially summer camps.
Illegal entry into the United States is a crime. It should be, it must be. And I would cite you to the Apostle Paul and his clear and wise command in Romans 13.
We will not apologize for the job we do or for the job law enforcement does for doing the job that the American people expect us to do.
So the Democrats want open borders. Let everybody come in. Let everybody pour in. We don't care. Let them come in from the Middle East. Let them come in from all over the place. We don't care.
These are children crying for their parents at a detention center. Children who have been separated from their parents, don't know where their parents are. Scared kids. If you ever heard a kid cry like that, you know where that comes from. That's fear.
So once again, I have set aside my planned episode to dive into something unexpected. Over the last week, we've watched in abject horror at the humanitarian crisis on our southern border. The United States of America under Donald John Trump was intentionally, callously conducting human rights violations by viciously separating immigrant children from their parents at the U.S.-Mexican international border. The Trump administration changed the policy of prosecuting illegal immigrants to this country from being a civil penalty to being a zero-tolerance criminal penalty. As you can imagine, the backlash from the public and the media coverage was intensely critical. Now, this was such a fast-moving story that between starting the research for this show and today, the new policy has already been rescinded by Trump via executive order. But that doesn't even begin to undo the physical and psychological damage that has been perpetrated on immigrant families and especially children. What this administration has done is nothing less than state-sanctioned child abuse. No more, no less. In our name, this feckless cuss of a man made us the one and only country on the planet that has a de facto policy of tearing children from parents in the name of national security. And that's not just my opinion. The UN Human Rights Council weighed in against us. I mean, my God, that is where we are now. We are now one of the bad guys. We are a rogue nation that terrorizes immigrant children by stealing them from their parents. But that's okay. We just pulled out of the UN's Human Rights Council, so fuck them, right? I'm going to take a wild guess that you have been seeing videos and hearing audio from the border and are seeing talking heads from every media platform imaginable. That is, unless you've been hiding under a rock or in a detention center, I guess. All of that data can be contradictory and sometimes intentionally misleading. I'm looking at you, conservative media, again.
Catch me outside. How about that?
What I want to do today is to make sure that you have the facts to rebut the ridiculous and false claims being made about the Trump policy of stripping immigrant children from their parents at the border. So many lies and half-truths have been thrown around like so much monkey crap at a zoo, it's hard to know, how to make heads or tails of it all. I hope this show will help you understand the basics of what's going on and how to combat the bullshit you hear from Fox News, the Trump administration, and that loudmouth bigot we all have in our Facebook and Twitter feeds. So, let's go. Probably one of the first things you have read or have heard goes something like, well, Clinton did it, or, well, Obama did it, or more obliquely, this is all the Democrats' fault. Look at 1997 and 2008, you see? Wrong. Big, fat, steaming pile of horseshit. Firstly, there has never been a federal policy up until April of this year with the specific intention to separate children from parents at the border. Never. What happened was that the Trump administration under Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III and Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen enacted a zero-tolerance policy of prosecuting all illegal border crossings as criminal, not civil. They go to criminal court, not immigration court under this new policy, and because children can't be prosecuted with their parents at a criminal court, this means that the children are forcibly removed from their family and held in detention centers. A primary difference in the Trump policy is that the children then get classified as unaccompanied minors and transferred to the Office of Refugee Resettlement for further detainment. Let's back up for just a second. When people cite the 1997 law under Bill Clinton, they're actually referring to the Flores Consent Decree. Basically, this settlement mandates that children brought here illegally can't be held in detention for more than 20 days. It makes no claim to the adults crossing the border, but the decree also does not say that families must be separated. Basically, after 20 days maximum, children are to be freed from detention, and there is nothing preventing the release of the parents at the same time. So the kids are to be released to a parent, an adult relative, or another caretaker without delay or by the 20 days at maximum. If these options are not exhausted, the government is to find the, and this is a quote, least restrictive setting for the child without unnecessary delay. Under the 2008 under Obama, well, let's just stop right there. It wasn't under Obama. It was a law signed by George W. Bush. That law is called the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. This broadly supported bipartisan law simply states that children brought to the U.S. illegally must be released rather than detained, and that they're exempted from the expedited deportation process to go back to their home countries. And there's a little carve out for Canadians and Mexicans in this law because of the contiguous nature of our borders with those countries. But again, no family separation policy is there either. The TVPRA was designed to help rescue children that have been taken by human traffickers. It was not intended to cause psychological damage to the kids. That was Trump, Stephen Miller, and Jeff Sessions' idea. Both of these laws have issues and unintended consequences, but we're not going to go into that. That's a whole nother episode. It's just enough to point out that no, neither 1997 nor 2008 are legitimate comparisons to the Trump policy of punitive family destruction. If you really want to go deep into immigration law, we can look back at the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. This makes a person's first border crossing into the United States a misdemeanor, but neither Clinton, Bush, nor Obama enforced that law with as much absolutism as Trump, and none of them intentionally separated families. Another falsehood is the claim that Obama separated more children than Trump. Nope. That's a falsehood too. Obama was beset by an unprecedented influx of unaccompanied minor immigrants around 2014. These kids were certainly held and housed under or until they could either be relocated with relatives or sponsors, and some deported if appropriate, but they were never intentionally separated from family. Fun fact, for all his bluster and demagoguery of immigrants, in the first 15 months of the Trump administration, he released nearly 100,000 immigrants who were apprehended at the U.S.-Mexico border. That includes more than 37,000 unaccompanied minors and more than 61,000 family members. His new zero-tolerance policy was a dramatic turnaround. So here's another straw man that you've probably seen lurking around. Well, if you go to jail, then you're separated from your family too. It's the same thing. Look, I'll parse that out here in a minute, but it's almost as stupid as, well, if they didn't want their kids to be taken away, they shouldn't have come here illegally. If you haven't seen or heard that line, take a look at any comment section on any post related to immigration on Facebook. It's pretty fucking gross what people will justify these days. Okay, 1. The jail analogy is flawed from the get-go. We're talking about people with no family structure to rely on, no friends, no community to speak of. They are often running from imminent death or starvation or gang violence, and they're running to us because it's supposed to be safe here. If you were to go to jail, the likelihood is that you would have some kind of support system in place, either socially or governmentally, to help you and your family through that time. These immigrants don't have that luxury. Moreover, it's a misdemeanor to cross the border illegally. Shoplifting can be a misdemeanor. It's also a misdemeanor if you're driving under the influence on your first violation. Imagine that you got pulled over for a DUI, spent the night in jail, you're released the next day, only to find out that your children had been stolen from your home by the government and shipped away somewhere you don't know. I mean, how far away? You don't know. Nobody you can call can tell you anything about where they are or even if they're okay. Imagine the horror you would feel. Imagine the pain and the misery. The desolation and heartbreak is what we have been doing to people on the U.S.-Mexico border for a misdemeanor offense equivalent of shoplifting. We are literally talking about people in their most vulnerable state, with nothing but each other for support. This president is intentionally taking that support system away. To intentionally strip babies from their mothers at their most vulnerable is morally reprehensible. And that's not hyperbole. That has happened. The youngest child I've read about was 8 months old. 8 months old. There are 4 detention camps for infants and toddlers on the border right now. They're referred to as tender age camps. This is who we are. This is what America now represents to the rest of the world. Infant and toddler detention camps with no parents to comfort them. One last thing, and I actually heard this again today, and I've heard this many times in many variations before. It's well, they deserve it. They came here illegally. They cut in line, so they get what they deserve. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a registered voter, and they need to be punished. I don't think I need to explain to you how disgusting that statement is. But of course, we all want legal immigration over illegal. We all want some kind of border security. We can all agree to that. But they get what they deserve, or it's the parents' fault they got their kids taken away, is a corrosive twist of morality. It's a contortion of decency that pits us against them in the worst way possible. They're illegals, not human beings. They broke the law, and therefore they don't deserve compassion. I honestly don't know what to say to people who believe that. And we've all met them. Some of them are people we care about. I'm so deeply saddened and disappointed in my fellow Americans when I read comments like this. Just the gaping vacuum in their hearts where their decency and morality used to reside seems like nothing less than a pit filled with slimy and putrid ideology and only the skeletal remains of their compassion for other human beings. There is a policy debate to be had about immigration. And yes, Democrats and Republicans have failed in their duty to hammer out real immigration reforms in the last decade or two. But this was and still is an abomination, and quite possibly illegal under international law. This shows the deep lack of moral character and fundamental human fucking decency of our leadership in both the White House and the Republicans in Congress, and you'd think at some point we would stop allowing history to repeat itself. We stole African American slave children from their families. We stole Native American children from their families in order to civilize them. We placed innocent Japanese Americans, including children, in internment camps during World War II, and these legacies still haunt us as Americans today. The legacy of this short-lived American experiment in human rights violations will haunt us for decades to come. Our standing in the world has slipped, and once more we have proven that America is at the cusp of total ethical decay. All the proof anyone should need of that decay is in these 4 little words: internment camps for children. Thank you for listening to the We'll Steal Your Children episode of The James Chambers Show. This one was hard, I know, but here are some ways to help these detained immigrant children And I'm also going to add some additional links in the description box below. Donate to the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services. Donate to the ACLU. Donate to Together Rising. And call your state and federal representatives. And for God's sake, teach your kids empathy and hold your friends and family accountable if their empathy begins to slip. Follow the show at RealJCShow on Twitter, or email the show at RealJCShow2017. That's RealJCShow2017 @gmail.com. Thank you so much, and talk to you next time.
Democrats don't care about the impact of uncontrolled migration on your communities, your schools, your hospitals, your jobs, or your safety. Democrats put illegal immigrants before they put American citizens. What the hell is going on?
You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person.